So I just had results from my free T3 test. And so I'm going to talk about that today and some more stuff around thyroid and body temperature. Hi there, my name is Sue. If you've not visited my channel before, I have been on a carnivore diet now for coming up 21 months, and my journey so far has been very positive. My weight loss has been incredibly slow, and I've had a lot of people asking whether my thyroid is low, and I have pretty much known that it's been low for a lot of years. But in the past, when I've been tested, the doctors would only ever test TSH, and it was always within range. So I've actually spent quite a lot of years kind of monitoring my basal body temperature, and it's always been really low. And now, as I've spoken about in some of my past videos, I was actually hyperthyroid about 2011, I think it was, and I opted not to go through mainstream treatment for that and managed to get it kind of under control myself. But from there, I kind of went back to hypothyroid symptoms, and that's where I've been ever since. And so I've just kind of been managing that along with all the rest of the stuff that was going on with my health. And then once I started on carnivore, I started getting some changes. I'm kind of gradually working through things. And because my weight loss has been so slow, and I still have some hypothyroid symptoms, although it's a lot better than when I first started on carnivore nearly 2 years ago. Now, I've done a couple of videos recently talking about taking methylene blue, which I am still doing. So the reason for taking the methylene blue is to help with mitochondrial function. So the mitochondria, of course, play a huge part in thyroid issues. So in the past, when I first learned about taking basal body temperature, as I said, have done that off and on for years, and my body temperature has always been low, and I've always been quite sensitive to the cold. That's got a bit better over the last couple of years, but it's still there. And my body temperature tends to be a bit higher, but it's still below where it should be. Now, the person who first came up with this basal body temperature information was a Dr. Broder Barnes. Now, he was working with hypothyroid patients and had noticed that obviously body temperature was low, and so that was one of the things that he advocated using to monitor your thyroid, because the blood tests they're not 100% accurate, and the ranges are miles too wide, which is what I was talking about in my last video. Now, I explained in my last video, if you go back and watch that, I've got some groovy little diagrams to show this stuff, but basically the ranges are based on the averages of the population, right, where you live. So what they do is, in defined areas, they look at the bottom and top ranges of 95% of the population, and they go, well, that's the normal range. So the other 5% is split 2.5% either side, and they're the abnormal range. And so that 95% is classed as being healthy, which, these days people just aren't healthy. And so if they're basing it on that, then they're basing it on really flawed data and assuming that people who fall within that range are healthy when they're actually not. And so this is why we have so many people, especially women, but men as well, who are hypothyroid, and they've got all these symptoms, and they go to the doctor. The doctor will only test TSH usually, unless they pay to go to a functional medicine practitioner. And the test comes back and it's within range, and the doctor goes, yeah, your thyroid's fine, you don't have any problems. And so that's been my experience over the years, and that's why I gave up on doctors a long time ago. But I have tried a couple of times to go and have blood tests done for thyroid, and just got frustrated because they won't test anything else. So as I said in my last video, I had my TSH and my free T4 tested, but the lab, which is Path Lab here in New Zealand, so they're one of the bigger collection laboratories, they won't test free T3 unless your TSH is out of range. And so I went on Monday and went to a private lab who I could order online the free T3 test, and went and had that tested. So my husband also had thyroid tests at this lab. He had TSH, free T4 and free T3, because I suspected that his thyroid was a little bit under as well. He's been losing some hair and he feels the cold a lot more than he used to, and sure enough, his has come back a bit low as well. Not as low as mine, but it is a bit low. So I'm going to go through those test results, but I wanted to speak a little bit more about this whole body temperature thing. So as I said, Broda Barnes was the one who started talking and writing about this, and then somebody shared that information with Dr. What's his name? Dennis Wilson. I always think Davis. Dr. Dennis Wilson. And so he read this book, and then he started looking into body temperature as well. And he's coined something, a syndrome that he calls Wilson temperature syndrome, named it after himself. But what he's saying, and his information is really interesting. I had come across him a lot of years ago as well and had kind of forgotten about him. But what he's saying is that when our body temperature is lower than it should be, our cells can't function the way that they're supposed to. The mitochondria and the work that happens inside of the cell with the DNA and everything that's supposed to fire away and do its thing in the cells can't happen often when the body temperature is too low. Now, it's interesting because when I Googled this just before doing the video, I came across a couple of websites, and I'm going to go and have a look at those and just read a couple of things to you. So the first website is the American Thyroid Association, and so they've got a page up here that is the American Thyroid Association Statement on Wilson Syndrome. And what it's saying is that they have their summary. Wilson's syndrome refers to the presence of common and non-specific symptoms, relatively low body temperature, and normal levels of thyroid hormones in blood. Dr. E. Dennis Wilson, who named the syndrome after himself, contends that it represents a form of thyroid hormone deficiency responsive to treatment with special preparation of T3. And so what he does is Dr. Wilson will use T3 rather than T4. And his theory is if the body temperature is low and you can get it up to normal and keep it there for a while, what he's found is that things will correct themselves. And he says that it can be stress or trauma that can trigger the body temperature to go low, and it's part of our basically our survival response. And it makes sense to me because often women, when they get pregnant, is when they start having problems with thyroid issues and symptoms. Even though their blood tests might come back normal, they're having all the symptoms of low thyroid. And so a lot of women go through their life with this and nothing ever gets resolved until maybe things get so bad that it shows up on a blood test eventually and they come down low enough that they're outside of those ranges. And so that was my case as well. I mean, I got pregnant when I was 16 with my daughter, and I had my daughter when I was 17. And in that pregnancy, I gained about 6 stone. So I can't remember how much that is in pounds, but it's a lot. It's about 40 kilos. And that weight didn't come off after I had her. You know, the gynecologist assured me that it would come off after I had my baby. No, I actually gained more weight after I had her. And I was in a very stressful and kind of somewhat violent relationship with her father, which I don't think helped. I actually wonder whether I had kind of thyroid issues even when I was younger. So I actually wonder whether it has been an issue since I hit puberty, because my menstrual cycle was always really bad right from when it first started, and very heavy and hard to deal with. And I started having issues with my feet swelling when I was 15, and which is a bit of a unusual, bizarre kind of thing. But caffeine actually used to make my feet swell. I eventually realised that's what that was. What he's saying is that when our body temperature is low, our cells can't function properly, and the mitochondria can't function properly, and the cells are part of what happens in the cells of our bodies is they convert T4 to T3. So the T3 is made throughout our whole body. T4 is made in our thyroid, but then that's released into the body, and our cells actually need to convert that into T3, and it's converted everywhere by all the different cells of our body because it's used everywhere. So the body temperature, the way that he explains it, it actually really makes sense. But when you look at, for example, the American Thyroid Association, they're saying that their thorough review of biomedical literature has found no scientific evidence supporting the existence of Wilson's syndrome. They say, first, the proposed basis of this syndrome is inconsistent with well-known and widely accepted facts about thyroid hormones production, metabolism, and action. T3 is one of the two natural thyroid hormones. Normally, it is mainly produced in target tissues outside of the thyroid gland, which it is. It's made all over the body, from metabolism of thyroxine, T4. This production of T3 and T4 occurs in a highly regulated manner. This is one reason that T3 is not currently recommended for thyroid hormone treatment. In most patients with thyroid hormone deficiency, T4 therapy allows T3 to be produced as it is naturally by the regulated metabolism of the administered T4 medication to T3. But what happens when you actually listen to people who have been diagnosed as being hypothyroid and are taking T4 is that most of the time it doesn't work. It will correct their blood test results, but it doesn't actually get rid of their symptoms. And they can go back to their doctor, and their doctor does the testing, and their doctor goes, oh no, but your test results are fine. And so everything should be fine, and yet they're still overweight, they're still cold, they're still losing their hair, they're still suffering from anxiety, their feet are still swelling, and they've got horrendous periods. And that's just the way that it is. I've been in so many thyroid groups over the years, and I own a copy of a book called Stop the Thyroid Madness, which is quite an interesting book. And this story is really, really common because mainstream medicine are not addressing the actual real problem. Okay, so it says the next thing it says is, second, the diagnostic criteria for Wilson's syndrome, non-specific symptoms and body temperature measurement are imprecise. Third, there is no scientific evidence that T3 therapy is better than a placebo would be for management of non-specific symptoms, such as those that have been described as part of Wilson's syndrome in individuals with and normal thyroid concentrations. Fourth, T3 therapy results in wide fluctuations in T3 concentrations in blood and body tissues. This produces symptoms and cardiovascular complications in some patients and is potentially dangerous. Not getting someone's thyroid correct is also potentially dangerous because over years it actually can damage your heart, being low as well as being high. So this is something that with an underactive thyroid is slower, but it still does happen. And I mean, the thing is that like with a lot of these diseases, is that they don't really want to cure them because, it just cuts the profit levels, doesn't it, when people don't need all these drugs for all these other symptoms that they're having because their thyroid's low. The Wilson's syndrome website lists 37 symptoms as well as others that can occur as part of the condition, and the ATA are disagreeing that some of those symptoms are anything to do with thyroid, and they may or may not be, but Dr. Wilson has found that they are symptoms that often resolve once body temperature is raised to a normal level. Now, they're talking about also how body temperature is not an indicator, and when I Googled this, I also came across an article on the Harvard University website talking about body temperature. So normal body temperature is generally regarded to be 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius. And what these guys at Harvard are saying is that maybe that normal temperature should be reduced because people's body temperatures are getting lower. And it's like, well, why are they getting lower? Obviously, because their health is declining. So what this does, if they say, oh, well, that's not normal body temperature anymore, is that makes it normal for people's body temperature to be lower, and again creates a situation where people are not well, but they're saying everything is fine. So in this Harvard article, it says, where did 98.6 degrees come from? In the mid-1800s, a German physician, Karl Wunderlich, measured armpit measurement temperatures from about 25,000 people and found that the average was 98.6 or 37 degrees Celsius. And so we've believed that ever since. But more modern studies have called this time-honoured truth into question and have found that normal body temperature varies throughout the day, which it does, tending to rise later in the day. Varies among individuals. Women tend to have higher body temperature than men, and younger people tend to have higher temperatures than older folks. Well, hello, younger people are healthier than older folks, so that kind of is really irrelevant. It also says height and weight may also affect body temperature, according to a 2023 study. Well, does weight affect it, or does the temperature affect the weight? There is the question, because and then it goes on to say maybe less than 98.6. Average oral temperature was 97.5 degrees Fahrenheit in an analysis of 20 studies published between 1935 and 1999. So I haven't looked at these studies. It's got a link there, but I'm actually wondering whether the earlier studies, like 1935, whether their body temperature would be higher and they've gradually come down, and then they've just taken an average from those 20 studies, because that's the sort of thing that they tend to do. Similarly, the 2023 study and an earlier study of more than 35,000 people pegged average body temperature at 97.9 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is a recent study of people who are probably in a population where people just aren't healthy. And so it's like with the blood tests, to take an average of people these days just doesn't even make sense. I mean, were people healthier in the 1800s than they are now? Was there less obesity and heart disease and cancer? Yeah, there was. And so would there have been less hypothyroidism? Absolutely. And because the diet has changed so much, the food, we've got all this processed food and all these seed oils and things like that just mess up people's health. So, they're trying to create a reason to reduce the bar for health is basically what they're doing. And then that way people stay sicker and they sell a whole bunch more drugs, basically, is what's happening. So it says at the end of this, seems to have fallen over the years. Normal body temperature has been drifting down over the last 2 centuries, according to a 2020 study. So again, why has it been drifting down? It's been drifting down because of a lack of health, because there's more people whose thyroids aren't quite working properly. And so, that's the whole thing. So what I'm doing, I'm going to go through my results in a minute, but what I'm doing is that I'm focusing, even before I came across Dr. Wilson's info again, I had been mulling over and thinking about how I can try and sort out and help my body to get healthier. And the mitochondria are a big player in this. And so that was why I started taking methylene blue quite a few weeks ago now, and I've done a couple of videos on that. The second video, I talk about how I'd taken my dose too high, and so I had to back it off. So at the moment, I'm taking 7 drops a day, and that seems to be a pretty good place. I'm feeling pretty good on that. And I'm also now using red light therapy. So I ordered a small red light panel, and I'm using that because the two of them together, they both work on the mitochondria, and when you use the two of them together, you get even better results. And because the mitochondria are a huge player in thyroid issues as well. I've also been listening to Dr. Wilson and his daughter and looking at their information on Fasticize, and I'm particularly intrigued with Shiversize. So I started playing with that yesterday because what they're saying is that they have found that this shivering action, if you do it, a few times a day for a minute, it helps to basically increase your body temperature and speed up your metabolism, and get your body burning body fat. And so I did it yesterday 3 times, and I actually felt really good. And it does stave off hunger, because what they're saying is when you do that, it encourages your body to start using its fat reserves. So I thought, well, that might actually help me to get some weight off as well. So I'm going to experiment with that, and I'll be doing some more videos talking about that and my results. It feels absolutely mental when you do it, but it really is a good workout. It gets you huffing and puffing and doing what they say it does. So we'll see what happens with that. And what Dr. Wilson is saying is if you can get your body temperature up to normal and keep it there for a while, then that corrects the problems and the symptoms will very likely go away. So I'm kind of intrigued with that, and my intuition is telling me that I'm on the right track with this. So I'm experimenting with all of these things, and we'll see what happens. The other thing that I'm thinking is that I might have to quit the caffeine. I'm still drinking green tea, which I started drinking because of Dr. William Davis talking about that to do with the gut health and creating the mucus in your gut. But because my gut is so much better, I'm thinking that when I run out of this lot of green tea, I'll probably stop, because Dr. Bright says that stimulants are not good for thyroid. And as I said earlier, even right from when I was 15, caffeine used to make my feet swell. And so I think that caffeine has never really been my friend. And I usually avoid it, but I'm having it at the moment in the form of the green tea. And I actually wonder whether that's why my feet had started swelling again. But I'll keep going with it until I've got a little bit left in the packet, so I'll keep having it, and then I will stop there. So let's get on to the results. So my free T3 came in at, hang on, I've got to find it. My free T3 came in at 3.8. Now, the range on this laboratory, Awanui Labs, the range, it says, is between 2.5 and 6.0. So, as usual, I've come in the range there. However, at the lower end. But if I go to Dr. Berry's Common Sense Labs book, what it tells me is that free T3, so the standard range he has in there is 3.07 to 6.76, and I'm 3.8, so I'm just in the standard range. But the optimal range is 4.61 to 5.38. And so I'm definitely not in the optimal range. And so once again, things are a bit low. The other results that I had, my free T4 and my TSH, were both in the low side on Dr. Berry's Common Sense Labs book as well. My TSH came in at 3.37, and Dr. Berry says it should be between 0.5 and 2, so definitely high there. And my free T4 came in at 10, which Dr. Berry says should be between 12.87 and 19.31. That's the optimal range, and even the standard range, as far as Common Sense Labs is concerned, I'm out of that. I'm low there as well, because it says between 10.56 and 22.78. Now, the differences in even the laboratories, and this is what I was talking about with the ranges that the laboratories put on their tests. As I said, they're based on the 95% of the population, the average of the middle 95%, and depending on where you live. So these two lots of tests that I've had done are with two different laboratories. So one is PathLab, as I said, here in New Zealand. The other one is Awanui Labs. Now, the PathLab, their free T4 range goes from 7.0 to 16.0. Whereas Awanui, I can see on my husband's results, their range goes from 12.0 to 22. So going by the Awanui results, I'm very low there in free T4 because I'm 10.0. The bottom of their range is 12.0. Their TSH range goes from 0.4 to 4.0, whereas PathLab goes from 0.3 to 5.0. So PathLab is 1 point higher at their higher end, which is the one that they're looking for hypothyroid. Because if you're hypothyroid, your TSH is going to be higher. If you're hyperthyroid, it's going to be lower with the TSH. If that makes sense. So the labs, even the labs, I mean, the ranges are there's a massive difference in some of them. And so, if I had a GP and I took these to my GP, I'd be interested to see what they said. They'd probably go with the PathLab one for the T4, and unless they were a little bit open-minded, because Path Lab is kind of the lab that they tend to use as a standard here in New Zealand. So yeah, so that's my results. Hubby's results. His free T4 was 13.4, and according to Dr. Berry's Common Sense Labs, so he's in the optimal range for free T4, so that goes from 12.87 to 19.31, so he's good there. His TSH was 3.2, which is a bit high. So in Common Sense Labs, it's 0.5 to 2.0, so he's high there. So that's showing, the TSH is showing hypothyroidism. And then his free T3 was 4.4, which according to Common Sense Labs, he's low there. He's out of the optimal range. So he's within the standard range, which is 3.07 to 6.76, but he's a bit low on the optimal range there as well. So that's probably why he's losing a lot of beard here and hair out of his head. We're noticing that in the shower. And he's had issues with feeling cold. He's not as bad as he was. He was really bad before we changed our eating, which he had never been before. It was always me that was cold and him that was hot. So kind of knew that stuff had changed. And a lot of people just put that down to aging, but it's not. It's because there's things going on in your body that shouldn't be, and if you don't correct them, it's just going to get worse. So he's also doing the methylene blue, of course, and the red light therapy, and he's practicing the shiver size as well. So we're both experimenting with that and taking our body temperature a few times during the day, as Dr. Wilson suggests, just to see whether it's going up. So we're also taking, I'm using iodine topically, and hubby's supposed to be taking iodine, but I think he keeps forgetting. And we are also using a glandular product. So there's a company here in New Zealand that does organ supplements, and they have a thyroid supplement. Their recommended dose is 8 capsules a day. We're only taking 2, and we thought we'd start off slow and monitor our body temperature and see what happens. And so I'm interested to see if we can get our body temperature up more into that normal range, whether things start improving, and then if we stop the thyroid supplement and that, whether it stays up there. We'll see what all happens. So I'll be doing more videos on this and talking about it, and so if you're interested, make sure to subscribe and click the little notification bell so that you get more videos. If you've got any comments or questions, just pop them down below and I will get to those as soon as I can. I hope I've been clear in this video with what I'm talking about. I kind of sometimes feel like I'm all over the place, but then when I edit it, I usually manage to slot things in where they should be pretty well, I think. So by subscribing and liking this video and sharing, you're supporting my channel, which is awesome if you can do that. And if you wanted to support my channel in any other ways, I have suggestions down below my videos. You can join my channel, or you can buy yourself a t-shirt or something from my store. That all helps me to get my testing done and to hopefully one day give me more time to do all of this and do more videos, because I really enjoy doing this and sharing what I'm doing. So I thank you very much for watching this. As I said, if you've got any comments or questions, fire away, and I will talk to you again another day. Goodbye for now.